Hello, welcome to Anastrophes, a new podcast series where we walk and talk with thinkers, ecologists, artists, designers, and those at the forefront of environmental struggle. If a catastrophe is things falling apart, then each episode of Anastrophes is a convergence, a moment of coming together. Through these walking conversations, we collect stories of key moments of change within the interviewee's practice, each one a marker of where our guests have been and where they're heading next. In this first episode, I spoke with Nicole Vindel. Nicole has been described as a food artist, and in this talk we discuss how she situates her practice as a space of gardening and cultivating knowledge. I hope you enjoy. To start our conversation, could you define yourself on your own terms?
Yes, so I think one thing that defines me is that I work in art, and my practice is around ecology and social and environmental aspects of this wild world. I would say the label of the format is multidisciplinary, yes. So basically my practice is based on questioning this wild world through ecology and society and geopolitics and identity and cultures.
I'm curious as to why you came onto food, because as an artist myself, and I find that certain mediums are seen as kind of craft or maybe devalued compared to art, and food to me is one of these ones which, when you say food artist or a designer working with food, it seems incongruent, it seems strange, and where that came from.
I think that there's a curiosity on playing with materials or alive. I think that I came across with food more in a research background, and through the different projects that I have been doing, it was just something that happened. I never thought that there was such a thing as food artist. I think that more than undervalued, it's misplaced. I think that food, it's only associated with food styling or nutrition or gastronomy, which it is. But also I think that it has a very important role in our society as objects have, or as alive beings, other alive beings have. And in the past year or two, I think that I expanded this food to alive beings that actually are also feeding us, like let's say the sun of the light. I'm doing now. I was in the Pyrenees now, working on an artwork that was working with the sun of the light, the sun, the light of the sun. So I think that to me this is also alive, and this is also food. It's changing our bodies, and it's feeding us just in another way as water or other beings.
It makes me think of two things. It makes me think of, this novel, The Girl with the Pearl Earring?
No, I have never heard of it.
I think it's like a historically accurate, I don't know how accurate it really is, about the Dutch painter Vermeer, who did the painting with The Girl with the Pearl Earring. It talks in this book about, it kind of immerses you in what it meant to be an oil painter at that time. And the thing that I always remember from it is that his oil, paint, were actually kidneys. So pigs' kidneys. Yeah.
Oh.
So they would use, because you needed a thing that kind of we use, metal now or plastic. They needed something they could sort of put the paint in, it would stay dry. And that line between living and dead is really interesting to me.
Well, at least at the end, leather comes from an animal, and there's paint that it's done, and temple al huevo, right, is done with eggs. And I think that food is way more integrated than we think. It's just that it's the material to prototype and to work with, that it's edible too.
I suppose there's also a kind of funny line between food and art, because art or design object generally, we're walking up big grand staircase made of stone, which is obviously minerals, and this idea between fixed versus movable. And I don't know, kind of in the hierarchy of how people talk about these practices, it seems to me that the things that can perish are devalued.
Yeah, I think that it's ephemeral, and there's something, for example, there's this book of Umberto Eco. It's called The History of Beauty. And there's a moment where he talks about how in modern times, I don't think it's just in modern times, but actually now it happens way more, the fact of seeing beauty and appreciating beauty, it's making us want to have it. Want to own it. So if you see someone wearing really nice shoes, you're gonna say oh, I want them.
Yeah.
Or if you see really nice human that you like, you say like, oh, I want to be their friend. I want to have them in my life. You extrapolate it to your own ownership or sense of control, I would say. And I think that this also comes from a state of egocentrism, of wanting it for us specifically instead of just appreciating it.
Kind of in order to spectate is then to want to then possess it, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then I think that's interesting. Should we do the escalators?
Yes.
Coming from like the UK where like I don't think you could have this outside because of the rain.
That's true. Here we don't.
But that line I find really interesting though, because food is something to be consumed. It's saying the quiet part out loud. Like when people behold artworks of beauty, they want to possess it, they want to consume it. And so food is already consumable.
No, and also it's ephemeral. When you do an artwork with a banana and a tape, this banana, that it's not gonna last forever. And so I think that there's some part of our understanding that things need to be there forever because we want to own them. And maybe this is happening with land art or with performance, and that these are also formats that I am very curious about because I think that you're able to appreciate them differently because of their ephemerality.
Yeah.
And then it's not that it's devaluated, it's that you need maybe some other discipline as photography to capture it. Mm-hmm. But the fact that it's ephemeral makes it also very special to me. Yeah, there's a park in the middle, so we can go both ways.
Those stairs look more interesting.
Yes,
they're prettier.
There's water.
Yeah, I love this work of yours. The name's escaping me right now. With the water flowing.
It's called The Privilege of Fake Abundance.
The Privilege of Fake Abundance.
Yeah.
Because this work, like, it has a flowing structure through it. And when I was reading up on you, you were talking about the infinity of if a tap was left running, it would be flowing out and then going back into the system forever.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So, without knowing it, I think that it's very related to what Nancy Fraser is picturing with the open tap and the sink. So for one side, what you're mentioning is a bit what we're seeing right now. That is these fountains of water that seems to be eternal and that they're forever running and flowing.
I just noticed that only on one side of it.
Yeah.
So on one side
the privilege of fake abundance, absolutely.
Yeah, five fountains either side, and then like one side completely dry, even there's not even any water. And the other side is replete.
I think it's very appropriate to talk about this with the sound of water on the background.
So this idea of fake abundance.
Yes, I think that it has these two sides. One is the tap, that it's constantly open, like picturing how we live in a place where we can find papayas in Spain in winter. We can find everything all the time. And because there is no effort related in opening a tap of the water or going to buy whatever we need in a grocery market, I wonder what's the value we're giving to it. And then the second one is this fake abundance, that it's as plates are piling up after a dinner, you're just leaving them there and saying like, oh, I will do it tomorrow. I think that this is a bit what we're doing in modern times with a lot of ecological urgencies and social urgencies. We're just piling them up, and future generations will need to wash them in some moment.
That's a really... that kind of discipline of chores, I suppose,
It's a bit like, what's the legacy we're leaving? Maybe just a pile of dirty plates.
It makes me think of two things. It makes you think of, first of all, that like kind of ritual as kind of respect. So doing the washing up afterwards, after eating, is like a sign of respect or ability to like acknowledge, like as you're describing.
Yeah.
But also, you talk about abundance, but I also think as abundance can be celebrated, but I think the convenience of abundance is what makes it be valued, maybe. So after a harvest or something like this, there is an abundance of food. But because there's no temporality to the abundance, it means that you don't notice the changes.
It's a fake abundance.
Yeah.
And actually, that prompts what's real abundant, like the question of what's real abundant. And I think that there's something in perpetuating or making something, the prosperity of something to continue being perpetuated. There's like, for example, permaculture. It's really interesting as an example because it's a way of harvesting in a way that can be done forever without desertifying the soil without compromising future harvests legitimate. That's the park I was telling you. Actually, there's a botanical garden over there. It's one of my favorite gardens.
I haven't been to the botanical garden.
Because it's the historical botanical garden, that it's the old one, and it's run by the neighbors.
Okay. I mean, that's funny you brought up botanical gardens and desertification, because Spain is going through like severe desertification, right? Mm-hmm. And in the UK, not so much. I mean, it's still happening. But one of the things that botanical gardens, I think at Oxford, for instance, is doing is starting to change the plants that they are tending to make more hardy or desert-friendly, desert-ready plants. And I think like it feels as you make your practice in and around Spain, like particularly interesting in that context of rapidly facing desertification. Mm-hmm. Have you found that changing, informing your work?
Yes, I think that we tend to see droughts and floods as something that happens very far away. But in the moment that it's happening here, it starts to feel real. Yeah. And it's like, oh, it's not just over there very far, you know? So there's this sense of believing based on fact.
Yeah.
Those are the ones, right?
Those are the monk parakeets we were talking about earlier, yeah.
Hello.
Okay. They're very loud.
Yes.
I love them.
I think that sadly Barcelona is one of the less green cities I've ever been.
Yeah?
Yes, and that's something I admire from London are the parks and the greens incorporated in the city. Actually, the other day I was here, I was listening that London it's considered forest city because of the amount of trees.
So like I think it's like a UN percentage, isn't it? Like X amount of tree coverage, you're a forest.
So I don't know about these UN percentages, but then maybe it's considered that Barcelona or many places in Spain are deserts.
It's interesting because even in the language we're using, like desertification, meaning kind of decline of viability of plants and stuff. Mm-hmm. But we now know that deserts are incredibly active ecosystems, and this kind of idea of a desert being an empty space, possibly being like a slightly problematic view. Because again, with the forest, coming from a London perspective, I often think about trees that municipalities plant. So like these trees over here are like, I think they're plane trees, and plane trees are always planted, I'm going to get it wrong, they're always planted either only male or only female versions of the trees. And this is why like pollen can be such a big issue in cities. Because there's so much pollen going out, but it's not.
Here it's all males, and are the ones that are releasing the pollen. As a pollen allergic, I realize very much.
And so like it's funny how kind of what visions of nature we want. I think like, I guess we're entering a botanic garden, these kind of still setted, controlled areas. As I was saying kind of before we started talking, like one of the points or themes of this project is to ask artists, creative designers, researchers about a moment of change or transition in their work. And I think this seems like a good point to ask that. What is something that made you change your practice or your approach?
That's very interesting because now with this last talk I was giving, I started to put together some projects, and I realized that there was a breaking point of a very key point in my practice where everything got shifted. In my case, it was around 2-3 years ago. I was flirting with burnout a lot, and then there was a moment that I was going from under the constant hustling and wanting for more, looking for more, and I created actually after that a piece called More is More is More is More is More is More.
How many mores is there?
Infinite. And basically it's a hand going out of the wall, hanging and holding carrot. And then in front of the carrot and the hand there's a running machine.
Okay.
So basically you're running and you're hearing.
Sort of a carrot and stick.
Yeah. You're hearing while you're trying to chase these carrots. But basically it's asking what are those carrots and what's after those carrots, and pushing you to run faster and harder and have this sensation that you're gonna get it. I don't know, it's an entire experience as a performance. And I think that was a key moment where I realized that after, and also a bit before, but after mainly, I was working a lot with water, the sunlight. Now I'm working a lot with bonsais and domestication of nature and artificiality and naturality. And I made my work become my garden at the end.
Could you speak more about that?
Yes.
I've got distracted by what I think are they gourds?
Those are pumpkins, sort of squash pumpkins.
And they've been dried?
Yes, they got emptied and dried, and actually in Mexico those are used to storage water because they can, when you dry them, you can storage water or foods and you can dry them, and actually our natural vessels, in Mexico they call it jicaras, and actually we did an experience where they were floating on a pool and we were sending the jicaras and you were eating over there.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you think of your work of like plate, like cutlery design, is that what I call it? But maybe first talk about, you said your artwork or your art practice as a garden.
Yes.
I thought it was really interesting because, being too exact about terminology, I've heard people talk about art as gardening, but you're talking about your actual practice itself as a garden.
Yes.
Could you maybe speak more about that?
So I think that my studio became the place where I want to be, because I want to dedicate my time to exploring elements that are alive as we are, so they are. Let's say water, for example. I think that there's something relevant in words and how we use terms, because I think words matter a lot. And this writer, that she's an anthropologist and she's a very interesting native of Native American, if there's such a thing as Native American. But she's basically, she's called Robin Wall-Kramer, and it's really nice how she suggests to redefine pronouns, as we're doing now for identity in humans, but also identity beyond humans, recognizing aliveness in the water, the birds, the plants, the sky, the sun, the moon, and instead of calling it it, because we would never call it to someone alive as our grandmother or our, you know?
Yeah.
She suggests calling them ki. And by ki.
Yeah.
Ki and kin.
Okay.
Ki for singular and kin for plural.
I see.
And actually I'm working now on a piece that I name Ki and Kin. And I'm trying to apply this language on my everyday life and on my everyday communication, because I think it helps to understand life in the same hierarchy than our life.
Yeah.
And in this piece, actually, I work a lot with trees, and it's called Somos Bosque. It's called We Are Forests. Because we are part of nature, and the understanding of this duality between humans or nature.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit...
Are they blueberries?
I think they come from this tree. Yeah.
Is it blue?
Olives, I think.
Olives, yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's a huge olive tree.
Yes. I don't know if those are edible. But as you can see here, you know, like there's some strings holding the tree itself.
Yeah.
So I think that here we're understanding nature and artificiality and human intervention as a collaboration.
Yeah.
It's interesting how sometimes this collaboration can help or can contribute to their life, and sometimes it's contributing to our lives, you know?
I think that line between artificiality and what you talk about in the what Robin Wall-Kramer is talking about, Timothy Morton has also written similar about like what is the ecological pronoun.
Yes.
Yeah, like you say, it. I mean, before actually, it's kind of a funny thing, isn't it? Because I think maybe 200 years ago, nature would have been referred to as her. It would have been gendered. And that might sound like it's more humanizing, but actually it's because the idea of the category of female was like more of an object of possession. So then actually by degendering it to it becomes objectifying as well.
Yeah.
And then moving beyond gendered pronouns, because as we were talking about with trees.
It's like maybe we're refining our language, and I think it's a process. Maybe there is even better ways of doing it, you know, but for now, I found that this was acknowledging enough and not imposing.
Yeah.
I feel that also this association with female that you were mentioning before, and that still happens a lot when we tend to associate Mother Nature, Pachamama, you know, like there's or Gaia, you know, we're always associating it with a female aspect. I always wonder if it comes from a motherhood state of who's giving us life.
Yeah.
Because many of the times there's like a goddess or entity is related to the earth or female. I wonder if it's coming from there or if it's coming from a state of how the soft skills and the characteristics from nature tend to be more on a feminine side than on a masculine side, that it's not associated with gender itself, you know, but with parts of our own selves. That's actually in this same garden we had some sessions of feminist ecologies with Magbam Museum and and a group of female artists and a woman involved in arts. And I remember one of the conversations was like how this park, for many people, they don't like it because they think that it's not cared because there's a lot of wild weeds, as you can see here.
Yeah. Is this like ivy, it looks like?
Yeah, it's like, oh, nobody's taking care of it. It's like very wild and messy, right? And I think that we are trying to make nature at our own organized way, but actually nature is messy and needs to be messy because they even tried to remove all the wild weeds and most of these plants got affected. Some of them even died. Yeah. You know, like trees that have been forever, they suddenly were super weak and they were struggling, and it was because there's this symbiotic existence of these interbeings.
Which way should we go?
We can go that way. Yeah. We're missing that part. Yeah, right? So, I love this park.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing, is like this place, you call it the Botanical Garden, it feels almost like a ruin now, and there's something really nice about that because
it's the historical Botanical Garden. That it's not. There's another one that it's bigger, but I think that this one is my favorite also because of the history. The government, when they opened the other one, they wanted to close this one, and all the neighbors fighted against it, so now it's run by the neighbors and by volunteers. So there's no public, apparently that's what I've heard, there's no public funding as it is in the other one, and it's mainly run by volunteers.
Yeah, I think that kind of like, I find the word artificial with nature always a tricky one because, well, I think it's used pejoratively. Rather than understanding that like gardening has a dark side, it definitely does. But also this act of kind of tinkering of nature really interests me because it's what the plants are doing as well. Yeah. Like you have a set of conditions and you respond to those conditions.
It's a dialogue, I think.
Dialogue, yeah.
So this artwork actually, it's framing it as a dialogue where nature, first we're nature, and what we create, it's not nature, because there has human intervention, but can have a dialogue with nature, as for example it happens in Japanese culture. I love Japanese gardens. And
you were talking earlier about bonsai trees. Is this a new project?
Yeah, together with the trees. I first make them in bonsai scale. But I think that there's something very interesting in this culture of modifying nature or intervening in nature, knowing how nature works. Instead of fighting against it, but working together with it, you know? And how you created this piece where birds can, if you listen to nature, I think you can do something that nature would be able to incorporate or have this dialogue with. You know, he would be happy if we do that.
I think that question of dialogue is always so interesting to me because to me, I think that kind of is at the core of like the modern project, or like a modern science project, modern art project. How do you listen and how do you respond equitably? So that starts with things such as pronouns, as we were talking earlier, but it also extends into like how to respect and honor the other. And I think food is really interesting with that. And your work with the cutlery and with the plates, because there's a kind of set of rituals that like have evolved around food and eating food. And part of that is about how you respect one another as humans. And I wonder how you extend respect to the non-human or the more than human. I don't know which term you prefer.
So I think that in my case, for example, asking the right questions is a way of starting, you know, to recognize this need to reframe it. And I think food is very powerful, not just because we all eat and it's universal and it's very cultural and emotional, but also because it's something that it's a habit, so it's not a one-off, something we do every day, all our lives, all human.
It's not like doing artwork based on death, for instance.
Exactly.
People die once, yeah.
Exactly. So because of the frequency of it, because of how on these privileged societies, and I would say almost like bubbles, where we can choose our foods, we have agency, is
The fake abundance.
yes.
Yeah.
We are also having a responsibility on how we do it. I think that many of these labels as vegan, vegetarian, pescivore, carnivore, something bore, you know, I think that flexitarian, everything Aryan, right? I think this is very interesting because it comes from an intention that later becomes an action and then later becomes a habit. Sometimes I think that the philosophy itself seems bigger than the intention.
Kind of like an ideology.
Yes, there's something imposing.
Yeah.
Because I think that a criteria shouldn't be something static forever for everyone. Like people should choose their own criteria, and I think that's why I teach critical thinking and why I think that's the main goal. Ecology is that we can be aware and decide and be part of this dialogue.
Mm-hmm. In the 20th century, you know, government food boards and stuff that would make things like, is it called a food pyramid? Mm-hmm. You know, these things, or X amount of milk or X amount of eggs or whatever it was in there.
Yeah.
I think going back to fake abundance, it's like actually the moment where sustenance was actually guaranteed, which in human history in the last 2,000 years or so wasn't a thing for so many people, and still isn't now, but where it has become more guaranteed, actually when people start to have to make decisions elsewhere. Yeah,
it shifted from what we eat to how we eat it, I think.
Yeah.
And the proportions, and also like there's this, I think it's also very related to cosmology and belief systems and how we assume certain information because that's spread, and sometimes it's not absolute. Also, it's not absolute for everyone. It's not the same what you might need in terms of food than what I would need in terms of food if we come from different backgrounds, different lifestyles, different even geographical locations and
different religions
and belief systems. I think that it's very complex, and that's why I think the only person that can and should choose it's your own, you know?
So how does that translate to, again, not to put the label of artist, but creative person, where you are putting stuff out into the world and you work internationally and you've lived in lots of different areas? How do you then communicate that subjectivity?
I think it's something that I practice and I embody more than I communicate.
The idea of gardening again. Huh? The idea of gardening.
Yes, and it's something that I hold some space on my life for that.
Yeah.
And then it becomes part of my way of thinking and believing, and then because it's part of me, it's part of what I create, you know, but it's not directly, and sometimes it takes a lot of time to be translated, you know, in all the process, so it comes into an artwork. I think now I'm seeing the result of things that happened in my life years ago after practicing for a while, and I don't know if this worthitarian thing will end up being a t-shirt or will end up being an artwork, but for
t-shirt
now
could be cool.
For now it's like a practice, you know.
But I suppose this idea of like worth is really interesting to me, because when I think of worth I think of labor and I think of value, and bonsai trees, or not just literally bonsai trees, but the act of bonsai and like pruning and caring is incredibly labor intensive, and just it is in many ways non-productive. Which is that a conscious decision to work with something that is such a labor of love?
Yeah, labor of caring. I think that the only being recognizing and respecting and serving something is by incorporating this care in a constant practice.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes it's hard to relate how our arts are tied to our values, but for example, there's I don't know, when I produce, I'm not like a massive producer of artworks. My times are slower working with those natural elements, you know? If I work with water, I need to test many times where water is going to flow, because I'm not going to tell it where it's going to flow. It's just going to flow, you know? And I can observe and react and, you know, but it's not I cannot change gravity. I cannot change, you know?
Has that become, I can imagine a type of creative, possibly at times I've been this, that find that frustrating. And so the act of care and patience is a learned trait, would you say? Or do you think you lend yourself to that patience naturally?
I think with some artists, with friends artists, we say that art is sort of a therapy, you know? That it's creating the conditions so you practice what you're missing to practice. And I think that I miss to practice patience itself, but that's seeing with one of my mentors, we're always talking about how hard it is to cultivate this patience, and I think that now my works are making me cultivate this patience in an extreme level, which I enjoy.
Yeah.
There's also this concept of ontological design. I don't know if you've heard about it.
I think I might have, but could you define it?
Yeah, so it's based on the phrase that everything that you design or you create, it's designing or creating you back. So I think that by creating the artworks I'm doing, they are creating me, you know?
Yeah.
The fact of needing to enter to the studio to water the kokedamas of my bonsais, you know? The fact of, I don't know, needing to water plants and fountains at the same time, you know, and listen to the water while I'm working all day long, you know. That's part of creating not just the artworks I do, but these artworks are creating me back, you know?
Yeah. It's like this, I don't always agree with his writing, but Yuval Noah Harari's question of, did we cultivate wheat or did wheat cultivate us? Because in many ways, that audio is very low. But this question of, you know, the one of the most domesticated crops, wheat or rice as well, I suppose. It's been cultivated for X thousands of years, but actually humans have had to adapt as well. In order to cultivate a domesticated crop, you have to change your societal formations in order to allow for labor practices that then allow you to grow X amount of this thing. And really, from the view of the biota, from the plant, actually what they've done is mobilize the humans to do the work for them. In the same way that we've domesticated cows, maybe the wheat has domesticated us. So I think that's ontological design in a nutshell, maybe.
Exactly, that's ontological design. That's a symbiotical design, right? Based on this, I think another author that talks a lot about it is Caroline Steele, with this book of Seatopia. Actually, she's from London.
Seatopia?
Seatopia. Seatopia means the place of food, and how our cities and environments have been shaped by the way we eat.
Yeah.
So how the distribution of food was done in growing larger societies, and how the food that we ate has been changing. It also has been changing longevity, health, productivity, work, and actually work. It's a creation because it's where we dedicate our time and energy.
Complete removal of textiles from most people's lives. And I hadn't considered before, but it's the same with food. In terms of cooking, people still do plenty of cooking, but in terms of cultivating and growing food, it's almost non-existent. I mean, it's an elective choice. Like, what is your hobby? Gardening, rather than what is your sustenance? Gardening.
Because you need it, yes. And there's this Nepali philosopher that I don't know how to pronounce his name, but that I found fascinating, the link he was doing with humans, that it's, maybe there?
Yeah.
The term humans that etymologically starts with hum and humus, that it's the soil and how the fact of being in contact with the soil is making us humans. But now that we're not in contact with the soil, we are disconnected not just from the harvesting part, but from all the other interbeings, you know, the bacteria, the microbes, the fungi, the seasons, perception of time and the circadian rhythm, the relief of energy in the ground, you know, that now, for example, we're working on asphalt with plastic shoes, or at least plastic soles, right?
Rubber shoes or something,
Yeah, it's like there's no direct electrical ground connection.
Yeah, you've got sandals on, you're doing better than me.
Ah,
I've got big hiking shoes.
I don't know, I would go barefoot, but I don't know, this is the city.
But this is the thing, I mean, like, and I think, like, with the soil as well, these connection with these elements, I don't know how, like, factual it is, but it feels factual. But, like, babies should be immersed in soil and get muddy and get exposed to those elements, because that's how you build up your immune system.
Exposition to bacteria in early ages, I think, might affect your entire microbe generation, and not just that. And I think also, like, how there's this grounding, you know, the electricity, this charge. That it's otherwise staying in our bodies and affecting our bodies. And also, like, even like walking barefoot, I think changes your entire position of your body.
Because of how you hold yourself.
Which muscles are you activating?
I think it sort of goes back to this, like, I like this analogy, I'm going to think about this, of kind of dilapidated botanical garden. Because it's sort of what we're living in writ large, right? There's kind of high modernist ideas of, like, science and politics as like or economics even as something you can solve as a solution, and botanical gardens being a key instrument in that, like, possessing nature, controlling nature. And now we've realized that's kind of not true. But it's also making me think of, like, when we were talking about fountains, like the gardens of Versailles, and, like, when I think for Louis the 16th, 14th, they had so many water fountains in the garden, the formalist garden design, that they could only turn on certain fountains as he walked around. So from his point of view, or from him and his court's point of view, the fountains were abundant, to use your language. But from anyone else's point of view, there was a desert around them at all times. If that makes sense. A little bit like that scene in the Truman Show, when it's raining, and they have to just move the rain to match him. But yeah, there's kind of like abandoned botanical garden. That kind of feels like knowledge practice writ large. And it's kind of different things are creeping in. Maybe we thought we solved nature and economics, and we discover climate change and the externality of these things. That goes back to the idea of living with mess, like allowing the weeds, allowing the cracks, allowing the dirt to come in, because the effort to kind of sterilize everything has been a failure, maybe.
Yeah, like it's not helping us to be better beings or better systems at the end, if that's the goal. Also, that makes me wonder what's our criteria of success, and what's our vision, not of a utopian future, but a protopian future that we see plausible and feasible and realistic, you know?
Did you say pluritopian?
Protopian.
Protopian. What does, like prototype?
Pro from positive.
Oh, okay.
Take future, ideal future, but it's not ideal as a utopian, that it's something very far away and it's something unrealistic, absolutely imaginary, that it's born from criticism of the current state, that it's how most of utopias are built on, but also, or like a protopian future is critical, but there's hope. There's some reality that this is gonna work out.
No, the idea of like gardening and tending versus a utopia, often, obviously the word utopia, as I understand it, it means no place. Protopia or gardening is constantly moving, constantly changing. And so rather than having an objective goal and working towards that, it's always amending and changing the position. Which I think is a good analogy for art practice, maybe?
Yeah. It's a dialogue at the end, because as we are having a conversation, we are evolving and we're observing, reacting, adapting, and I think that our art practice, it's a bit like that. There's this saying that there's two methods, the architect method and the gardener's method. Have you ever heard about it?
No, but I want to.
So basically they say that there's two types of people in the world.
Okay.
There's one that is the architect mindset or method, that basically you have a brief, you have a piece of land where you decide that you're going to do this type of building. You agreed with everyone that it's going to be this amount of apartments with this terrain, these conditions, this blah, 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 right? Once you do that, because you want to make it happen, you strategize. And you strategize with a method that has been tested, proved, and approved socio-culturally for ages, that it's as being an architect, right?
It's the project,
you need to
projecting the idea into the world.
And to get from A to B, you need to do all these different steps until you get there, right?
So you have a goal that you're working towards. Yeah.
It's focused on the results, that it's B, it's the endpoint. It's a known method, so there's no surprises. Also, you first think and then you execute. There's no adaptation, because that's a known path, right? And it's safe, there's no risk. So I think this is how most of our work culture is built.
Yeah.
But then there's the gardeners, that basically you receive a bunch of seeds. And no one tells you what are the seeds, you just put them on earth and start watering the plant. And all you do is water this plant. And whatever it happens, you will water this plant. So basically, suddenly it's very cold. You will protect the plant, that it's growing, so it doesn't die and freeze, right? But at any moment, there's this risk that it's gonna die. Nobody is gonna tell you what happens when the leaves are yellow or suddenly have these spots, and you need to go and figure it out on the way and keep watering the plant and keep listening, being aware, being ready for whatever can happen, and be consistent. You don't know what this plan is gonna even be, because if you're focused on the process, not focused on you're not driven by the results. It comes from an act of caring and really wanting this plan to be alive, no matter what. There's no process set, there's nothing safe and secure. And one day, maybe, if everything is going well and you made it, there's one day that this plant is gonna grow enough and maybe it's gonna give some fruits. And then you're gonna receive these fruits, but you didn't made it all the way because of these fruits. They are just the end result. And I think that the art practice is more like this, that you are on a process, on a journey. And I don't know, many times, I don't even know how this is going to evolve, because it ends up evolving in some ways that I would not have never expected. And maybe when you're working with things that are out of your control, as other beings, as other people, as other processes that you've never tried and are experimental, right?
I think that, when I think about any art project I've ever done, any project I've ever done, the gardening mindset versus the architect, the gardening normally works out better. Should we head down back this way?
I think we're that way. We go back.
Okay. No, I think we're sort of reaching the end of what's a really beautiful conversation. I suppose going back to this idea of points of change, points of reconsideration, it seems like your message is this gardener's mindset.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the best one, if it's the easiest one, if it's absolutely not.
No.
But I think...
But it's a way you found that works for you.
Yeah, I think then whatever it comes, it makes way more sense. Because it's what makes sense and not what it's said to be.
And I think it also, there's something sort of, I like surprises. I like things not necessarily going how they should. I mean, even that word should is like a pre-existing plan, and then you realize that plan. Whereas with the tending, cultivating process, it's stuff sort of comes out of nowhere. And is that sort of what you're looking for, to be surprised by your own approach?
Absolutely. I think that otherwise would be boring, no?
Yeah.
Also, I have been working on this concept of paradise as a Persian term that relates, actually the Sufis poets and Rumi related the concept of paradise to this inner walled garden where you choose what you want to cultivate on it and what you allow to enter and not. And I have an artwork that it's named like this because it's a picture of my mental space, and I think that sometimes everything that is abstract and it's not tangible, it's hard to visualize and recognize. So basically to me it's an exercise that helps me recognize where is what's occupying my mind now.
Yeah.
And what space am I holding for each of the things, if it's aligned with what I want to cultivate in this garden of my mind. And I think it's very related.
That feels really beautiful. Okay, maybe we should leave it there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks to you. Really nice conversation.
It is. I just love walking and talking. So, wait, can I take it? Thank you for listening to Anastrophes. Books mentioned and links to Nicole's work can be found in the episode description. This episode was hosted by Christie Swallow and edited by Ava Shia, with assistance from Aya El Khoury and Marie Lehman. Sound design by Kaylin Shu.